Hello, I am at TigerPhysics, Mr. McChesney from Pickerington High School Central. In the first video for how to work with LoggerPro, I talked about how to do the save as, changing the column titles. When you are stuck with something in LoggerPro and you want to change it, double-clicking is usually the option you want to go with. That will bring up an option box that allows you to change your graph or your columns on your data table. How to switch around your axis, how to title your graph, how to turn on or off the lines on the graph, which is called the major and minor tick styles, how to turn on or off connect points so your graph looks clean and you don't have zigzaggy lines all over your graph. Most of the time, connect points should be turned off, and also how to do a linear fit onto your data. In this second video, I'm going to show you how to adjust the scaling, add a manual column, and add a calculated column, and then also do a curve fit versus a linear fit. So here I have a set of data from a pendulum lab, and you can see it's all plotted. I got time for 10 swings on the y-axis, string length on the x-axis, and I've got a nice title on there. So I want to show you a couple things about scaling. If you want to change the scaling on this, one way to do that is put your cursor in the middle of the graph and double click. And then you can type something in that you think would give you a good scale on the y-axis on here on the left, and then down here on the bottom right you can type in on the x-axis and change that. Other options are move over to the edge of the graph where the axis line is, and you'll see this symbol appear, and you can just click and drag down or up and expand or shrink your workspace that you're going to be plotting in. You can also move your cursor up to the top of the graph and just off of the graph axis, and it changes into this cursor style. If you click on that, you can actually then type in a value and change the scaling. There's also up here in the button bar, there's an auto scale. If you click that, it will fit all of your data exactly on the page you've got. The only issue is if you got something in the little corner there, it's really hard to see. So I don't really like that part of the auto scaling feature, but it's useful to get everything on the graph and then make small adjustments. There's also, if you put your cursor in the middle of the axis, you can get this double-headed arrow, and that shifts if you click and drag up or down, you can shift your axes forward or back, up or down, depending on whether you're the y or x axis. So I want to show a little bit of the negative region in both the x and y direction. So I change to the very corner there, and then at the very top corner here, I want to put that so I can see all those data points. So now I've got all of my data on my graph, and I want to do a couple things with that. So that's how to change the scaling. Now I want to look at adding a manual column. So if you have to type something new into your data table and you need a new column for that, one thing you can do is come up here to data, and you have this option for a new manual column. And you can call it whatever you need to call it. So maybe in this case it's mass, M, and units would be grams. And you can look at options. Is there a certain style you want these to be plotted in? Is there a certain color you want it to be plotted in? How many decimal places do you want it to go? And then what data set do you want it to apply to? So on this new length, string length versus time is the one I want. So I don't want it in this first one or this second data set or this one here or this one here. So there's a lot of different things I've got here that's going on, but I really only want it in this new length one for the purposes of this video. So here I'm going to only add it to that one, or I can add it to a new data set and give that new data set a name here. So I click done, and when I see in my data table, if I expand it a little for you, I've got a new column called mass. I don't really like the color of that, where it says mass kind of in a light blue there. So if I go back to column options, I can change that to any color that I want. Since we're getting near Halloween and we're starting to see Halloween stuff in the stores, I'm going to change it to pumpkin. So there, now we can see mass, and now I can start typing in different things to this if I want. If you find you don't need that column, if you click on the top of it where it says mass and hit delete on your keyboard, you can get rid of that. But that's how you add a manual column. If I want to do something with all the data I've got typed in already, and I don't want to have to do a hand calculation, I can do something called a calculated column. So again, I go up to data, click on that, click on new calculated column, and it brings up this option box, and I can give it a title. So if I want to find out the time for one swing instead of the time for 10 swings, I give it a title, give it a short name, and give it some units of seconds. And then I have to be careful what data set am I going to put it into. In this case, I just wanted to add to the new length data set. And then I want to click in this expression box, which is where the mathematical function will be that's going to help me do the work I need to do. So I click on that to activate the box, come into where it says the variable columns, and pick what do I want to change. I want to change time for 10 swings. And you have to be careful here that you don't adjust anything it says there. The quote marks or anything is telling the computer to do something, so you want to make sure you use this to, if you're going to do something to one of those columns. And I'm going to do divide by 10. And then I can look at options if I want. Is there a certain color I want this to be, or anything along those lines. And then I can say done. And then what you'll notice is in my new length data set, I've got time for one swing. And it should be the number I had for time for 10 swings divided by 10 and giving me this number. It looks like those numbers are working out. So I click back on my graph. I can now say I don't want to graph time for 10 swings. I can say graph time for one swing. And then it replots this, but it shrunk everything. So again, I can hit the auto scale if I want, or I can come up here onto my graph and just type in a number that seems reasonable. So it looks like I need to go no more than like 3 or 4. So I can try 4. That's not quite good enough, so let's go 3 as my top number. And it looks like I'm using up most of the graph. So I'm just going to get rid of some of this negative region here. And that looks pretty good there. So now that's how you do the calculated column. And the last thing is, what do I want to do? Linear fit or curve fit? So if I look at this and I say, oh, that looks like a straight line, I can come up to the buttons here and hover over them to see that this one says linear fit. Under Analyze, I can also do the same thing. Go to a linear fit, click on it, and it puts a line on my graph. Whether that's a straight line bit of data or not, it will put a straight line on there. As I look at this, I see I have a dot down here, which is actually a bunch of dots, and then I have a bunch of dots above the line, and then they start to go below the line. So really, this is not a very good fit for my data. So I want to get rid of this. So if I click on the little X, I'm going to get rid of the linear fit, and I want to try a curve fit. So right next to linear fit is curve fit. Click on that, and it brings up the screen with a bunch of different equations you can try. In this class, proportional, linear, and quadratic, and then possibly, if you scroll down just a little bit, there's an inverse or an inverse square. Those are pretty much the only functions we will use in this class for this year. So I can try a proportional, see how that works. That looks kind of like a straight line. That didn't work before. I can try the linear fit and say try that. That doesn't look great. If I try quadratic, I try that. That seems to go through most of my data, and it kind of looks like what we've talked about in class. It's kind of curvy, and we have to square the y-axis here to get that to be a nice straight line. So I try it, move my box out of the way, and here I've got the information I need, but I don't really need to see that. I just need to have the line going through there to see if that's a curve or not. So that looks like it hits most of my data. The only issue I have now is my axis says time for one swing, but my title says time for 10 swings. So if I double click on the graph, click graph options, I can change it so it says time for one swing versus string length. And that's pretty much all we need to see for this video for now. Thank you so much for listening. I hope it was helpful. If you have any suggestions or ways I can improve these videos, please let me know. I'm on Twitter as @TigerPhysics, and my website is TigerPhysics.org. This is Kevin McChesney signing off for the Pickerington Central Broadcast region.